now how do I manage this? How do I rewire the brain and all those kind of things? So a little bit about
Here it
us,
comes.
of course. Oh, I gotta get, I don't, let's see. Let me get you muted. Who's not muted? Into hopefully, I think Heather skipped out. So let's see. Okay. So a little bit about us, of course, we all kinds of family counseling, individual counseling, video and phone counseling, also the free educational classes, the 24-hour, 7 days a week crisis line. So, you know, if there's something going on the weekend wise, that on the evenings that we have that service. Okay, so let's start with a few little quotes here and thoughts about mindset. All of the books that I always bring into all of these are referenced in the back of this PowerPoint. So you'll get this PowerPoint, and then of course the recording, and it has the references. But so of course, shame that binds you. You know, it's here. It's like, so okay, what's underneath the adult, you know, behavior? There's always a child, and you know, and that child may have been neglected. So this needy child, you know, may mean that there's something empty in them, and that's that hole in his soul that I love. And so and then our fixed mindset or our growth mindset, I have that book referenced in the back. It's sitting right up here. It's about how can we program ourselves to go into a growth mindset. Our fixed mindset is where we don't want to be. So what happens is we're programmed in our fixed mindset, right? And we're programmed in that with our culture and our family of origin. There's no doubt. And so sometimes that robs us of the now. So we're in the past, right? Or we're in the future. So we're going to talk a lot about, you know, because anxiety is being in the future. So we're robbing ourselves of the future, of the present, because we're in the future. And so let's just go over some disorders here. And so with a grain of salt, let's just, you know, here's basic stuff, right, of the anxiety disorders. The generalized anxiety is just worry, severe worry and tension. We're going to go over that a little bit. Panic is repeated panic attacks without triggers. Okay, so we don't have time to go into all of these. These are just basic definitions, very simple. So we think, oh wait, I'm having a panic attack. Well, but you were activated by something. Well, then it's not a true panic. It's really just anxiety or a physiological body response to a trapped feeling or agoraphobia. So, and the phobias are specific, you know, objects or situations or that you avoid. And we're going to talk about things that we avoid and are those safety behaviors that we avoid because there is you know, there's an exposure to it and we want to avoid it. So we shut it down. We don't do it. Okay. You know, elevator, crowds, going to the store, all those kind of things. Just little basics there. So this is what worry looks like. Normal, mild distress. It's temporary. It's usually verbal, like I'm worrying about this. It's a given situation, and it's most of the time controllable. And so we think, anxiety keeps us alive. It keeps us safe. We go into the primal fight, flight, or freeze brain, and we worry about some of these things. Of course, that's normal. And we sometimes think that it's not normal, and we call everything anxiety. And so we go into this, I just keep on worrying about this. Well, is it temporary? Is it okay? Are you still in your mind? Are you still in your thoughts? Okay. But when it gets into more of an impairment, it lingers, and you have physiological body responses, and you have mental imagery. You have less problem solving. You have, you know, it's not controllable, and it's it's less it's more of a blocking process instead of like you have control over it. So you're blocked. So we have blocking situations, we have perfectionism, we have personal functioning that's impaired, and then we ruminate. So playing the scene over and over again is ruminating. I call it marinating. So it's like we marinate the ribs and we just soak them and soak them and soak them. We never barbecue them. And it's like, why are we not just eating the ribs? Why don't we cook them? Because we hold on to that story. And I've still, sorry, I'm going to pause for a minute so we get this person muted. So if you can hear me, if you can mute yourself, there's one person that still has their mic on, and I, as the second host, can do that. I usually can. I'm just trying to find out what I had to stop. Okay. So this is just a visual, right, of a little bit of comparison from a panic attack to an anxiety stress. Okay. So here's this we have normal stress. If it goes into, like I said, that other list of worry, then we have some impairment. But see, what happens is they're both intertwined with a body response, right? They do. And then agoraphobia, feeling trapped, also has a body response. So it's just some awareness. That's all this is, a little bit of awareness of like, okay, here's a visual. But the biggest thing I put on this slide is this is how I explain the brain very simply myself, with, lots of, backup on that, but I just very simple. So this is how the brain works. So first we have to have clarity. So we have to have clarity in the brain. So think about, you have to know something. You have to know what that sound is. This is the example I give to kids and parents and stuff. It's like, so after the earthquake, there was this weird sound that people were close to the earthquake last year, and in March, a year ago, that there was like a sound that came with the earthquake. And so I had kids and other people, like, they heard like a garbage truck or a mimic of that rumble sound, and it freaked them out because it's like, wait, I don't know what that sound is. So we have to have clarity. So we say, oh, that's the garbage truck. Okay, so we connect the dots and we say, oh, that sound is the garbage truck. That's not an earthquake. And now we have control over how we deal with that, right? So now it's not just connecting the dots with sound or what's going on. So there's another part of this connection. The brain has to have connection, human connection, grounding connection, earth connection, lots of different connection, and we're just wired for that. So those are three things. So first we have to have clarity. That is why I start teaching, and always with clarity of like, here is the definition of a few things. Here's some clarity about panic or anxiety. Panic doesn't have an activator. Anxiety does. It has worry, and you worry about this, team meeting that you have at work that you have to present some stuff, and you worry about it the night before. So that's a true activator. So we have to have clarity on what we're worrying about, the irritability, and then we connect the dots a little bit, and then we can have control over it. So this is like, it's simple, but it's not. So it has to go in that order, and the control is the power. And that's what therapy does. And that's where we have gained power over this. So this is where we rewire the brain through power. And that's what we've got to get to. So this is a little bit about the fuel. Okay, so avoidances. So safety behaviors sound great, right? So whether or not the short-term or long-term stuff, we have safety behaviors that we have built in, that we have learned from childhood, from lots of years of avoiding some things. So we don't realize what we're doing. They're usually self-soothing activities too. They're avoidances. And I just did a self-soothing one, let's see, last Friday for kids. And if you understand what self-soothing is, and then we go into adulthood and we self-soothe again, sometimes good, sometimes bad. And so we do some subconscious things and unconscious things. So what we do is we avoid doing something to fuel the fire, to avoid facing the fear. And so what that does is it fuels the fire. It fuels it back. and it builds it up, builds it up, builds it up, and just makes it bigger. And so what happens is then you will volcano, which is stuffers turn into volcanoes. And it's not just a fire anymore, it's a volcano. And that's what I teach. I teach the anxiety program for Blomquist, and I go through 5 weeks of this. So if you need more help with that, there is that available. But, you know, we got to tolerate what we're avoiding. We have to tolerate it first, and we have to figure out what that is a little bit. And then we have to face it. And so if we don't, it turns into way bigger problems, volcanoing, bigger fire, fight, flight, freeze, right? All the time. It turns into exhaustion. It turns into all the symptoms that I'm going to talk about. So how do we rewire what's firing? Okay, so what fires? Okay, yeah, it's about fire. It fires in the brain. So here's the firing of something, right? And so what happens is when that is continuously firing, repetitive stuff, when it's been repetitive for years and years and years, even weeks and months, because 6 months of something turns into post-traumatic stress. So after 6 months of that reoccurring, it's now wiring together. So we have to unwire and unlearn that. And it's always about an emotion, right? So we have to unwire those chemicals, which are emotions. And I can go over a little bit of that today. I'm definitely going to. But here's the water. Here's the fire hose, right? How do we put water on a volcano? That doesn't work. But if we can put water on a fire, and we can definitely put it out. And I believe that. I've seen it happen with some work and some CBT, some DBT, some EMDR therapy. It all goes in together of like, you know what, I don't need to worry about that. I don't need to worry about it anymore. I put water on it. I'm not going to personalize that. I'm not going to have thinking errors around that. And that's a great webinar, by the way. I've got thinking errors part 1 and 2 on YouTube now. So that's a real popular one, because this all thinking errors leads to the feeling. So you got to watch the thinking errors class first, then we have to learn about anxiety. Because our brain goes into overgeneralization and black and white and shaming and labeling and blaming, and those are all thinking errors. So a little bit about the gray and white matter. It matters, I promise. So there's gray and white matter that matters. And there is scientific proof now. I mean, the last 10 years, it's just gotten so much deeper and so much more scientific that we can change the brain. We can shrink gray matter by doing things, which is not good. Like pot shrinking, regular use of pot after 3 months, you have a good amount of gray matter has shrunk in the brain. So meditation grows gray matter. We know that now. White matter is about your steady diet and healthy fats. It's my favorite thing. Lots of nutrition, lots of diet stuff, because sleep, diet, and exercise is number 1 for all of this. So your brain's made up of 80% of good fats. It actually shrinks down when you sleep, and that's good. The gray and white matter, your brain shrinks when you sleep. That's why exercise, sleep, grounding, mindfulness, meditation, all these things, improving your diet. You have to sleep in so many cycles of REM sleep for your brain to restore and get rid of the toxins. That's why it shrinks when you sleep. And that's when your muscles grow. And, if we could do anything, it's sleep. Sleep's number 1. And, I don't have this in order, but I would have sleep, diet, exercise, and then these things next. And we're going to talk about these things. I'm going to talk about 10-minute distractions mostly, because that's how we start doing a new problem-solving behavior, right? A creative thinking. We improve emotion, memory, attention, language that way. We have a better vocabulary, reading comprehension. It's huge, humongous. And so this is where it's like, well, wait a minute, none of those things are happening. I'm not having a good attention span or focus when I have anxiety. Well, that's because you're in the back of the brain. You're not up here. and you need to build some of this stuff on the other side by doing these things. And we're not balanced. So a little bit of that, a little bit more on this gray matter and white matter, just some knowledge on that. The white matter is about 60% of the brain. And so go back to this. If white matter is responsible for, you know, lots of this other stuff, which is all these things, motor skills and emotions and memory, then it's really important to make sure that that you keep adding to your balance. If you, and it's just picking one of these. So if you want to improve reading comprehension or memory or emotions, then of course you get more emotionally intelligent. So let's see, having problems reaching sleep. There are ways to help getting better sleep. So that's, yes, there's lots of ways to get better sleep. It's like I said, it is my number one in therapy and everything I do, because I cannot treat anything else if we're not sleeping. Now, Americans don't sleep. It's horrible statistics. And in the last year, I can't wait for those statistics to come out. I mean, melatonin's increased 600% in cells. Melatonin is one of the, not the Band-Aid that we need for sleep. So I do have, for anyone, it's not just for parenting and kids, but you can watch the sleep hygiene workshop. It's an hour. These are all an hour long. You can kind of fast forward me if you want. There's a PowerPoint with it. You can always get a PowerPoint from me by emailing me. My email's on the front of this with the CARYL@blomquisthill.com. And I go through REM sleep hygiene, supplements for sleep, your sleep routine, burnout, screen burnout, all that kind of stuff. So it's really important to get our kids back sleeping. Our teenagers not sleeping. It's really shrinking stuff in the brain. It actually shrinks the brain in the bad way. Of course, like I said, when we sleep, our brain calms down. So because we're so inflamed during the day with food and stress, our brain is inflamed. And so when we go to sleep, we want that to decrease and repair the toxins. And so that's why it shrinks, because the toxins leave the blood system in the brain, and you calm your brain down in the REM circadian rhythm. And if you're not in that, it doesn't happen. And so over time, guess what happens? You're firing stress at night, and that wires together. So now nighttime becomes trauma instead of rest and digest. So you got to rest and digest. Okay, so shrinking the gray matter, of course, leads to Alzheimer's, depression, post-traumatic, motor skills issues, memory issues, a whole bunch of things. So yeah, email me and I'll send you any PowerPoint of the past workshops. And yeah, I just have those PowerPoints, and you can, but in the PowerPoints itself, in the workshops and the recordings, it has the PowerPoint with it. If you want to just look at the PowerPoint, but I explain a lot in the PowerPoints in these workshops. Of course, I go really fast because there's a lot of material I cover, in 55 minutes. So this is where we have to understand this part. So now we have gray matter, white, the brain. It's like, okay, sleep's super important. This is what we want to do: exercise and get grounded, meditate, and all these other things to build and to get rid of this daily stress that we're under, and our horrible diets and our stress and our toxins and all that stuff. So what we want to do is, so mindfulness is different than meditation, of course. So this is just a little tease into mindfulness. But wise mind is emotional mind and logical together. This is what we want to focus on. We want to be logical, and we want to be emotionally together. And so this is where the next part of this webinar is going to talk about how to get there. And so we've got to go into the emotional side, because that's the chemicals. That's what's firing us, right? That's what's sending us to thinking of something that's going to happen that's not going to happen yet, or lots of anxiety and worry. So wise mind's in the middle. both frontal lobes, and I have lots of other PowerPoints and webinars that go into this more. I'm actually going to do, like, this one is going to be the mindful way through depression. That's going to be in several weeks. Like, I think it's like I think that one's in August. So there's a whole bunch coming up every month. I have them all scheduled. So that one's an awesome one, because this is John Zen that coined mindfulness for, he's on 50 years of that. So that's a great book. But okay, so next one. So I've mentioned emotions. Okay, so this is just the handout on how to start observing your emotions. Because remember, number one, clarity. So if we don't know what emotion we're having, if we can't find it, if we can't label it, we haven't gone past clarity. So then we have, connect. Now let's experience it. Okay, so you're connecting, you're experiencing the emotion. If you're blocking it, you're pushing it, you're stuffing it, you're doing safety behaviors, you're stonewalling, and you will volcano. So if we don't get past 2, we don't get anywhere. So then we accept it. We have boundaries around it. We have values. We have, we don't have shame. And then we self-talk through that. And that's why it says replace thinking errors on there. And that's, if you don't know what thinking errors are, watch that one. And then we practice. So we're going to talk about today practice, because this is part 2. This is where we practice now. How do we do 10-minute distractions and emotional regulate that gets us back to where we can self-soothe, and we can get our brain down to a 5 and a 4 and a 3, instead of being sitting around a 7 or an 8 or 9, which is most what people report being in, is a 7, 8 or 9. 10 is exploding. So we sit in this high level of anxiety and stress and emotion that runs and hijacks our brain. So we have to get to a 5. We have to get to a 4. So that's what the practice is about. And scientifically, you only need 10 minutes to get back to your frontal lobes and get to a 5 where you can self-talk. So that's just a handout there. And there's lots more on emotional coaching, emotional regulation, part 1 and 2 on the workshops too. So I'm going to go over 5. Practicing emotional regulation. Wise mind, okay. So logic, emotion together, we already went over that. The new skills, this is what I'm going to teach you next. Some 10-minute skills that you can do anywhere, any place, anytime. So when I worked with substance abuse for like 7 years, I taught tons of groups to substance abuse groups, and they're, mostly they were court ordered. And so they would have to, like, what's your 10-minute distraction to get the mind off the urge to use anything, punch a wall, use drugs, drink again, whatever. And it has to be a 10-minute distraction, meaning if it's an avoidance, watching TV for 2 hours is an avoidance, 2 hours plus. Or, some people would be like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm like, that doesn't work. Start over. Because it's not. Now, that's a great distraction. But I'm telling you that when you're really ticked off or something's really stressing you out, we don't go snowboarding. We don't go to the gym. And we can't always go to the gym, and we can't always snowboard. So what is it that you're going to practice that's new? My favorite thing is mind dumping. My second favorite thing is an intervention called organizing. So you just 10 minutes, you set the egg timer. I have parents get egg timers, and anyone can get an egg timer. And we're not looking at our watch. We're setting the timer, and we're going to do something for 10 minutes. And then we're going to stop. And so it's like, okay, we're going to organize this drawer. We're going to go for a walk. We're going to breathe. We're going to just organize something. When we organize something, it is actually cleaning out our brain. So it's a deeper intervention. So a little bit of that. So then we have to go into vulnerability. Wholeheartedly living is Brene Brown's Gifts of Imperfection here. We have to get creative. We have to connect. Remember, because if we got clarity and we know what our emotions are, that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then we can connect. We can connect the dots, and we can have compassion after that. If we aren't creative, we're going to light up our depressive brain. When our creative brains lighten up, our depressive brain will not light up. So the other part of that 10-minute distraction is coloring, doing something creative, creating something, painting something, doing, cleaning your car is creative, organizing something is creative. So it's all those kind of things. Higher purpose is deep. Okay. So I'm going to leave that one there. Just know your higher purpose. What is your purpose of doing something or changing your values in your life? And then be willing to start over, repair, start over, do your best. And it's just repeating that and then repeating it again and again and again, 100 times a day if you need to. It's just not beating yourself up for starting over, right? So emotional regulation is not removing emotion. Because remember, that's the thinking here. We want to use wise mind. We want to use both together. So it is zero removing emotion, but it's connecting the dots, letting the emotion happen, using the emotion for a benefit, which is anxiety. Because anxiety is not an emotion, it is a result of multiple emotions. Overwhelmed, fearful, all kinds of the fearful emotions. Let me grab my handout, I'll show you. But it's, this is what I use constantly, it's my will. So here's the primary emotions, and shame and surprise and sad and scared and happy. But what's really going on is I feel humiliated or disappointed or overwhelmed or embarrassed or vulnerable or insecure or frustrated or annoyed or jealous, so that's all the secondary emotions that's going on. So we just have to understand what's going on so we can connect, have compassion for ourselves, wholehearted living, and then practice again, being open to it. So that's the emotional part of that. So getting to the 10-minute examples, because these are what's going to, I think, hopefully help you the most, because it's very, very quick. It's very instant. And these are all immediate state changes that we call them. So when we do a state change, we go from the fight or flight brain, the survival brain, the freeze brain, to the frontal lobes where we reason, where we have organization, so we can self-talk. We are not self-talking when we're in PTSD brain or autism brain or ADHD brain or anxiety brain. We just don't. We don't self-talk as much. So we need to stop. What are we feeling? Okay. I have these little cards that I hand out to people in therapy. It's like they're already printed out. They just have to stop on them. So you can put them in your car. If you're a road rager, put this in your car. But all you have to do is get a 3x5 card and write these down and have them someplace so you can look at it. Because when you are to a 7 or an 8 or 9, you're not going to do these things. We have to do it when we're at a 7, 6, or 5. You see what I'm saying? Hope everyone's following me. I'm going fast. So then we take a break. Now, all I say with that one, especially for parents, I say step back 2 feet. Actually, step back 2 feet. So take a step back. And I should just say step back 2 feet physically. And just observe and gather information, because we have to have clarity so we can connect the dots. Then we can have control over it, which is proceed mindfully, which is wise mind up here. So it's like, okay, here's the goals. Here's what I want. Oh, this is the final thing. And then we have to practice it. So this is just a 3x5 card. Stop, STOPP. What do? We do those things. And this is like, that's not 10 minutes, but these are all up to 10-minute examples. Okay. So that's just seconds that you could do that. When you observe, make sure you do a room scan and you do a full mindful coming back to the present. What do you see? What do you smell? What do you touch? What do you feel? All those things of your 5 senses, so you can get really observe information. If someone's coming at you, if someone's aggravated, someone's de-escalated, needs to be de-escalated, you have to de-escalate. This is the first thing you do. This is in, anger management, anything. Okay. So this next one, this is a 10-minute activity that you can do in all 4 of these different things. Okay. So temperature, TIPP is a tip for for a state change. So number one, temperature. When you want to calm the brain and get back to what you need to get back to, do something with temperature. Ice cubes in the hands, ice cubes on the neck, something cold that you can wrap around your neck, hot and cold showers, a warm bath, of course, all those things. It just use temperature. A bag of peas, right? A nice cold bag of peas on your stomach, on your chest, on your neck, anywhere that you feel inside your body being activated. Okay. Intense aerobic exercise. I'm going to talk, there's one slide about that. It's just 10 jumping jacks. It's really intense, fast aerobic exercise. There is so much research on this, more than anything else. We just do something quick. And this is hard when you're in a panic attack, but that's like an 8 or 9 or 10. So I'm not expecting you to go, oh my gosh, I'm having a panic attack. I'm just going to go add to my, to my panic and do an aerobic exercise. That's not what I'm saying here, just so you know. It's right before you get to that. It's right as you're worrying about it. It's when you're not activated. We go and do something quick, especially in your break from work. I tell people to do 10 minutes walk to the bathroom and back, and it's not to go to the bathroom. It's to get grounded. It's to do an aerobic exercise. It's to get some cold water on your neck. It's to breathe. It's to get mindful. It's to get present. Okay. So pace breathing, that's just 4 square breathing. So it's, it's up 4 breaths, and I just have kids and anyone, make sure you tap, because it's like, okay, up 4, and then you hold it for 4, and then you let it out for 4, and then you wait 4, and then you do it 4 times. You'll have a 30% decrease in your heart rate, better lung capacity, blood flow. What happens when you are breathing, it's not deep breathing, it's paced breathing, is that your lymphatic system actually opens. This is scientific. It's not about, to me, it's about the lymphatic system that doesn't have a pump. Your heart has a pump for the blood to do that, but your lymphatic system doesn't. And your lymphatic system could be holding a lot of toxins. And if you're sick a lot, that means your lymphatic system isn't pumping, isn't breathing, stuff like that. If you have skin issues, same thing. And then paired muscle relaxation. So this is just 2 squeeze balls. So we have the squeeze ball, we always have 1, right? No, you have to have paired. So 2 squeeze balls in each hand. You're squeezing each arm together, you're squeezing each leg together, you're squeezing your knees, your arms, your leg, your ankles, your toes, it doesn't matter. So it's just paired muscle, squeezing and then relaxing, and then squeezing and then relaxing, but it's paired. So that's what that is. That's just another little, card that you can write down and just remind yourself of picking one of these and then doing it throughout the day, because these are 10-minute distractions that are going to rewire your brain that says, I have, clarity, and then I have connection. Oh, I have control. And these are what you do to take back control. So this is the jumping jacks, okay? So like, 10 jumping jacks, and aggravated, good aerobic exercise. That's why trampolines, jump rope, just running in place. What else? Just really good, fast aerobic exercise. This is what it does immediately to you. It brings up your mood, okay? The thing is serotonin, melatonin, and dopamine are made in the gut. 80% of your serotonin is produced in the gut. So think about when your gut's not happy and you're not moving and you're stuck, your serotonin is not going to be getting to your brain. So that's a whole other story about this kind of stuff. We want dopamine and serotonin to give us motivation and happiness and all the good hormones. We want melatonin to produce during the day, so it kicks in at night for our circadian rhythm. So we need to move during the day for sure, but it increases communication and effectiveness. That's because it's not about communication, it's about focus, and it's about being present. When you're not feeling good or you're not present, you will not listen and communicate well. And you think, well, my teenager's not present because they don't really listen or they don't express themselves well. Yeah, because they're not present in the situation sometimes. Okay, so pros and cons. This is another 10-minute activity you can do anywhere, anyplace, anytime. Okay, you get a piece of paper and you write down short-term, long-term. You write down consequences, pros and cons, advantages, disadvantages. And there's nothing better about going through this with somebody else after you wrote it down 2 or 3 times. And I always, when I send home a pros and cons, you know, I call them growth assignments to my clients, it's a crappy first draft, you know, right? Do a pros and cons crappy first draft, then redo it, and then redo it according to your value system, okay? So you just write down at the top, this is the issue. What would be the pros and cons with this issue? Changing jobs, moving, big things like that, of course, right? You're going to rehearse those multiple times. You're going to go over them, and then you're going to take it to your marble jar friend, your partner, your best friend, you know, someone that you trust, and say, what do you think about this? Oh, you totally forgot this con. Oh, yeah, right? Oh, that's huge. Okay, well, what about the pros over here? And so it's just brainstorming, right? But man, in 10 minutes, you can get real present, and especially if you're writing it down. And so if you write something down, you're not going to falter in, you know, you're not going to fall into your urges. Right? As urges, because we're making rational, irrational, you know, decisions. If we're doing irrational stuff, if we're just going straight into fight or flight or freeze, we're not self-talking. So this helps us self-talk. Think about the last time you just jotted down, you know, how you were going to get through the day. How are we going to get through the day? That should be written down. That should be scheduled. That should be, you know, and that's a short-term consideration. This day is going to be this, and this is the crisis or not. And then here's what I'm going to do with pros and cons. And this would be, you know, the disadvantages is avoiding it, going home, right? So what if you said, this is the crisis behavior today, I'm just going to go home today, I'm not going to work. What would the pros and cons be with that? So it's just whatever it needs to be. You can write these down. Okay, so the next part is just these 10-minute activities, anything in here. Okay, so we talked about relaxation activities, you know, some breathing or other stuff. One thing in the moment, that's your mindfulness stuff, that's scanning the room. Vacation, you can take a 10-minute imagery vacation every day. That's my minimum. Every week, every month, every year is a real vacation. And so your brain doesn't know the difference. So you just imagine your vacation spot. And these things soothe the soul. That's what you're soothing. When you're doing self-care, you're doing self-care, but soothing yourself is a way deeper. And so think about your self-soothing activities that are not so great, right? So we smoke a lot, we eat a lot, we drink a lot, we shop a lot, and we watch a lot. Okay, so that's America's statistics right now. We are in debt. We're the most obese. We're the most unhealthy. We consume the most sugar. We consume the most of a lot of things, more than any other country. So what's happening? That's self-soothing. Now, is that self-soothing your soul, or is it self-soothing the emptiness of the soul, which I talked about on the first slide? Just relax and think about that for a minute and just go, okay, I'm in my body. Okay, relaxing, finding those actions, and then going, okay, what am I self-soothing right now? Self-soothing is soothing an emotion that is blocked, that is stuck, that is stuck. And that leads to anxiety. Any of that thing leads to a long-term anxiety. It also leads to depression. Not clinically, but just a depression and an anxiety. And we have to release some of those things So these are just, improve the moment by picking one of these things. So if you write down a little card, say, okay, am I going to do an imagery? Am I going to go into meaning? Am I going to go into prayer, meditation, contemplation? Am I going to do a relaxation activity? Am I going to do a mindful activity, one thing at a time, one thing in a moment? That's moment. Being in the moment is mindfulness. Am I going to do a 10-minute vacation? Am I going to encourage myself or someone else? Some encouragement. That's just a little idea there. So that's another one. Okay, moving on. So mindfulness, too fast. So mindfulness, this is a whole workshop, slide on just mindfulness here. So I've had this in multiple workshops. So this is just a repeat here. These are just some other things, right? So I've talked about 5 senses. A worry bag is like something you can take with you to places. That's why I carry my, 50-pound purse that has everything in it I ever need. I have oils in there. I have a pen and paper in there. I have, chapstick in there if I just need something to smell. So a 10-minute, 2-minute to 10-minute distraction breaks the urge. Okay? So we focus on the now, okay? So that's what this little slide is about. There's freemindfulness.org, livingwell.org. You can download some free mindfulness guided imageries on there, or guided walking you through just body scans or breathing or imagery stuff. So, okay. So medications, okay. So this is, we talked about sleep a little bit. Someone had a question about that. These are just some supplements, okay. So the next slide is about medications. This is about supplements. Supplements are to supplement food, which we are not getting in our diet, which I've done tons of summits and I continue to do them about this, and getting trained in integrative medicine for mental health counselors. That's what I'm doing right now. So it's very, very vital because we're depleted. So these amino acids over here are neurotransmitters. So I said GABA, melatonin, and your serotonin and your dopamine are made in the gut. GABA's in the gut. If we don't get those, GABA helps transmit that. So GABA is one of the best things known, and magnesium and omega-3s, scientifically, those 3, and vitamin D3, right in line with that, for improvement of anxiety, depression, and ADHD, and even autism. So GABA is one of the best things for ADHD focus, for anxiety and sleep. So GABA is asleep. It helps with that. So that's in the afternoon, calms the nervous system. These are amino acids, neurotransmitters underneath that amino acid list. And then you've got the magnesium there. So just get your, if you need to get blood tested, see if you're low in vitamin D, and your B vitamins, then take a supplement as you get your blood tested. And I'm just going fast. So we're going fast. So these are just a little bit about SSRIs, okay? So SSRIs can be temporary. There's a time and a place. The supplements and the food and the diet and all these other stuff I just talked about are long-term. They're going to be long-term support for you. These can be short-term, they can be long-term in the SSRIs, but there is no scientific proven pill or SSRI for PTSD. There's not one. So do SSRIs help you get back to your frontal lobes a little bit and calm the nervous system? Yes, they do. So just look at that and see what if medications are something that you need to look at. So that's why I put that in here. So it's just a little bit on SSRIs. This is what we're going to watch for, okay? So after you've done all those things and say you're sleeping better and say you're trying to do those, you've added 2 to 4 10-minute activities a day, a 10-minute distraction of walking, a 10-minute distraction of organizing something, a 10-minute distraction of mindfulness and then a 10-minute distraction of imagery of where you are sitting and being in the present for 10 minutes. And and you've done supplements, or you've done treatment, or you've done SSRIs. We have to go deeper into your, we go into deeper into diet, into other things, and then we go into trauma, okay? Because this is what your brain, your neurotransmitters have taught you. So your nervous system has taught you this, and it has wired together. So we have to unwire it. So that's trauma work. But if we're still doing some of these things, we're avoiding activities, unexplained body aches, we're using drugs, excessive crying and irritability, which we've got a lot of irritability going on, and poor performance, and so now it's like, okay, it's summertime. Everything's better in the summer, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. I'm totally biased, with the summer, because that's when I garden and I pick flowers every single week, and I do tons of stuff outside, and I'm on the lake, and just summer is great for you, but you're getting vitamin D, you're moving though, and so it seems like, but it's like, okay, how do we get back control after this year? How do we take back our power? How do we get better performance and focus? We can get it back. But if we're continuing to self-soothe after 6 months to a year in these other behaviors, now we've fired it together. We have wired it together. We've completely said, this stresses me out, so I'm just going to stay in this mindset. And so these are some things. I want to answer questions in a minute, so we just got a couple of minutes. So these are just some checklists, okay? So this slide's just like, okay, this is what we talked about. Let's see, anything on there we didn't talk about? Humor, just be funny. Just try to not sweat the small stuff. That's one of my workshops. Conflict negotiation, we want to just try to be assertive, not judge. And so that's all the emotional side too. And so here's the little checklist. Are you doing a reward system? Are you having many vacations? Are you doing logical and emotional together? That's why I learned about that. Are you finding a safe place? Are you creating a safe place for yourself? Are you balanced? So there's the upcoming one I have next week on Wednesday. If any of you are teachers, since there's quite a few of you today in this workshop, if there's any teachers out there at university level, or all of the at the districts that we're over, Nebo and Canyons and Salt Lake City and Granite, and all the districts that we cover, I am doing just a teacher workshop a week from Wednesday, just for you guys. And so please sign up for that, and then send your responses or questions if you have any comments of like, how did we get through this summer? How did we get through last year? So we can start out the school year right, in a better balance and a better integrated system. Because I think we had a lot of problems in this last year of education. So if you have that, please email me and sign up for that. And here is some references. I try to go over some of the books if there's any questions about that. Just some of my normal books in there. Of course, Raising Emotionally Intelligent Children's always in there. But when I'm talking about emotions, there's this basic one, the mindset I talked about. That's Carol DeWitt on Raising Strong, Gifts of Imperfections on there. It's on Audible. To the parenting one, but just Gifts of Imperfection in itself. So, okay, questions. Let's see.
Okay, did you see the one? Have you already addressed the one talking about sleeping?
Yep, we talked about that a bit, but if you haven't,
I had a couple to me directly. So someone said, "Is your system ACT based?"
ACT based.
If you're still in here, whoever said that to me, can you?
Yeah, I don't understand what that means, but let's see, AC. So CBT, I said, or DBT based. I think that's what you.
Acceptance and commitment therapy.
Oh yeah, so that acceptance. Okay, yeah, okay. I'm not trained in that, but I know what it is a little bit. So it's like, it's a little bit. That's basically what I go into.
Hey, Carol, you're muted. You're muted.
Carol, you're muted. There you go.
You can hear me now. Wow, I didn't touch anything. Wow.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so so I was like, so no, DBT, what I was saying was DBT. I do DBT stuff of course in the anxiety program because that's like radical acceptance. So yeah, when we go into a growth mindset, and that's what Carol DeWick's book's about, is a growth mindset or fixed mindset. That's acceptance, right? That's a whole bunch of Zen stuff. That's just radical acceptance. So yeah, it's the same kind of concept. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So let's see, how about the central primitive brain affects our anxiety? So yeah, I mean, it does. So there's a question about the primitive brain, but it's basically the basic easy part of all this in the brain is how I just, how you rewire it is getting out of your fight, flight, or freeze faster, because you're going to go there and you're going to be in your back of your brain. And that's all, that's 14 different disorders. That's fear brain. And so when we are in, fear brain, we have to teach ourselves to get back here. So those are all those 10-minute activities. That's mindfulness. And the faster we can go back there and say, no, I have power over this, and then accept it, and then go in and then practice it. So yeah.
Okay, and then I had one to me directly. So it says, one of my parents is having a hard time, but they don't live in the same household as me and they are not on my insurance plan. Are there services that Blanco Hotels offers to family members who are not dependents, or do you have resources you could point to me for therapy, public services, etc.? So it depends on the company you have, as far as the benefit, if they have to live in your home or not. But since they don't qualify for any of that, you can always call. We have care coordinators who are happy to help with any resources that are in the community or therapy that can help your parents. So you can just call and say, I just need to speak to a care coordinator, and they'll have them call you back, and you can just kind of tell them the situation, and then they'll help you find resources. And that's all I have on my questions.
Okay.
I
So
have a question. Can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, so I am teaching health and wellness classes at the elementary level. And I'm in Neville School District, and I'm the only one who's doing this in this school district. I'm doing it as like a planning time teacher. So I'm only there part-time, but I've been teaching a lot of these same types of principles to children. We don't have a set curriculum. I was pretty much between me and God coming up with lessons and it worked out okay for the first year considering, but I'm wondering are there resources that I can get from you that I can use in the classrooms with the kids to make it a little bit more structured and activities? I mean, I have a lot, but I would love to make it so it was more directed, because I teach every single grade except for kindergarten.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that I can get some more resources.
So there's tons, and I have tons of, and I'll even type in my own website because I have my own handouts at paperbackconnections.com. Paperbackconnections.com. And so the thing is about so there's like 3 or 4 really good workshops that are already on YouTube for this. And I can email those PowerPoints. But the emotional coaching, these are scientific, everything's, and I teach teachers how to, like I do spiral, or, and the 4 square breathing and tapping on their knees. It's EMDR, it's butterfly tapping down here, So it's really, and how to get kids present, so they're going to actually, mind dumping for 30 seconds in research with kids before a test. They did 33, they didn't just do 3%, but they did it for 30 seconds. And the kids that did it continuously did 30% better on the test. I mean, up to 30% better because they mind up. So it's just, so paperbackconnections.com. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Because I think there's some great stuff here, but I obviously this this type of stuff that we're talking about right now is more for adults. So I need to make sure I can teach it
Yeah.
in a sense to a
It's-
level and teach it
Yeah.
also to the different grades. So,
Yeah.
but it's
But it's
fabulous
for,
stuff.
It's for anything, because really 10
Yeah.
minutes, right? So you're going to do 5
Oh, yeah.
minutes for kids. That's it.
Right.
And a
Yeah.
reward system after that. Every time they do a 5-minute, thing, then they get a reward. So it's a 5-minute, a spiral or mind dumping, and then it's time you get extra whatever. And so it's always created with a reward system. That's how the brain works. So mind dumping is
Fabulous.
writing something down, and it's writing. It's paper and pencil. It's not, mind dumping is dumping it and then getting rid of it. It is a wrinkle, scribble, crinkle, burn, shred. It's not to keep. It's not journaling. It's mind dumping. So, I mean, I've had lots of that be very successful for anywhere from, an 8-year-old to a 68-year-old. And she mind dumped for several months, and she didn't have to mind dump anymore. She went to gratitude dumping, I call it. And you do the shift of gratitude dumping and then getting rid of it, because you don't have to mind dump anymore. Because mind dumping is all that, I hate this and I don't know about this and I'm scared about this and I'm, and that's a little bit more of just dumping it, because stuffing it does not work. So we need to dump it.